What do you call a creature whose adult form can tear through starship hulls with bare claws, but whose infant can barely squeak loud enough to be heard across a room? Marcus Chen didn't know the answer when he stepped off the transport onto Station Kethara, but he was about to find out in the most unexpected way possible. The assignment seemed straightforward enough. Document the rehabilitation efforts of the galaxy's most controversial xenobiology program. File his report with the Interspecies Conservation Coalition. And catch the next transport back to Earth. Simple, clinical, professional. Except nothing about Kethara Station felt simple the moment he saw her. She stood in the observation deck doorway, backlit by the soft violet glow of the station's bioluminescent panels, and for a heartbeat Marcus forgot how to breathe. Her hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves of silver that seemed to catch light that wasn't there, framing a face so delicately structured it could have graced old Earth paintings. Human in every way, except for the elegant, pointed ears that swept back from her temples and the faint luminescent quality to her flawless skin that made her seem like she was lit from within. She wore fitted tactical pants in deep charcoal and a sleeveless top with geometric patterns that hugged her slim figure. The kind of functional yet striking outfit that suggested someone who worked with dangerous creatures but refused to sacrifice style for safety. Her eyes, a striking amber color that seemed to shift in the light, met his with an intensity that made him acutely aware he was staring. "You're the human observer," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality with just a hint of an accent he couldn't place. Not a question, a statement. "I'm Lyra. You're late." Marcus checked his chronometer reflexively 3 minutes past scheduled arrival, hardly worth mentioning across galactic standard time zones. The docking procedure took longer than expected. "I apologize for any." "It's fine," she interrupted. But her expression softened just a fraction, the corners of her mouth hinting at something that wasn't quite a smile. "They're awake now anyway. You'll want to see this." She turned without waiting for his response. And Marcus found himself following, drawn by curiosity and something else he didn't want to examine too closely. The corridor curved through the station's biodome section, transparent aluminum walls revealing the carefully maintained ecosystems beyond, miniature worlds suspended in the void of space. "What am I about to see exactly?" Marcus asked, hurrying to match her brisk pace. "Your file said this was a rehabilitation center for endangered species, but the coalition was vague about which species." Lyra's shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. "That's because most council members voted to let them go extinct. Your people abstained. Which is the only reason we're having this conversation." Before Marcus could process that statement, she palmed open a security door and gestured him through into an observation room that overlooked a carefully constructed habitat, rocks, scattered vegetation, climate controls maintaining what looked like a warm savanna environment, and in the center, a heated alcove where Marcus saw movement that made his blood run cold. 3 small creatures, each no bigger than a house cat, tumbled over each other in a pile of silvery gray fur and oversized paws. Their bodies were compact and muscular even in infancy, with distinctive ridge patterns along their spines that Marcus recognized immediately from every military briefing. Every cautionary tale, every horror story whispered in station bars across the galaxy. "Those are Kreshtar cubs," Marcus breathed, pressing closer to the observation glass. "You're raising Kreshtar young, orphan Kreshtar young," Lyra corrected, her tone carefully neutral. "The last of their kind actually. Their homeworld was destroyed 6 months ago. Asteroid collision, completely natural disaster. These 3 were off-world with a diplomatic family. The only survivors of their entire species." Marcus's mind reeled. The Kreshtar, the galaxy's most feared warrior race. The species that had conquered 40 systems before the Council Alliance finally pushed them back. The predators who knew no fear and gave no mercy. Now reduced to 3 orphan cubs practicing. Wait. A sound emerged from the habitat, something between a squeak and a rasp, as one of the cubs, the smallest one, with a distinctive white patch on its chest, opened its tiny mouth and attempted what was clearly meant to be a roar. What came out was more of a kitten-like mewl with aspirations of grandeur. The cub looked affronted by its own vocal inadequacy, sat back on its haunches, puffed up its little chest, and tried again. This time the sound had slightly more bass, still nowhere near intimidating, more adorable than terrifying, like a squeaky toy trying to impersonate thunder. "They do this every day," Lyra said quietly, and Marcus caught something in her voice he hadn't expected: tenderness, deep and genuine. Instinct drives them to practice their challenge roars, even though there's no adult to teach them proper technique. They're trying so hard to be fierce. The other cubs noticed their siblings' efforts and scrambled to join in. Suddenly it was a chorus of tiny attempted roars. 3 baby predators giving their absolute all to sound threatening, producing instead a symphony of squeaks, chirps, and miniature growls that wouldn't frighten a mouse. Marcus found himself smiling despite everything he knew about their species, despite the scars he'd seen on veterans who'd faced adult Kreshtar in combat, despite the logical part of his brain screaming that these were dangerous creatures. "How long do they practice?" he asked. "Usually about 10 minutes before." Lyra paused, pointed. "Before that happens, the smallest cub, the one who'd started the whole concert, was mid-roar, mouth open, little teeth visible, when it suddenly froze, wavered slightly, and toppled sideways, sound cutting off mid-squeak as it collapsed into instant sleep. Within seconds, its siblings followed suit, one falling backward with its paws in the air, the other face planting directly into a water bowl before rolling to the side, all 3 passing out as if someone had flipped a switch. "They fall asleep mid-roar," Marcus said, unnecessarily stating the obvious, because his brain needed to process what he'd just witnessed. "Every single time," Lyra confirmed. And now she was definitely smiling, a real smile that transformed her entire face, made her eyes crinkle at the corners, and that luminescent quality seemed to intensify. "Cubs this young have limited energy reserves. They practice their survival skills, exhaust themselves and crash immediately. No wind down, no gradual tiredness, just instant unconsciousness wherever they happen to be standing." Marcus watched the 3 small bodies, already snoring in tiny, rumbling purrs, and felt something crack open in his chest. "The council wanted to let them die," he said slowly. "Why?" Lyra's smile faded. "Because they're Kreshtar, because the war ended only 5 years ago, because thousands of species lost millions of people to their expansion, because forgiveness is harder than extinction." She crossed her arms, defensive now. "Because it's easier to let babies die for their parents' sins than to admit that every species, even predators, even warriors, deserves a chance to survive. But you're keeping them alive," Marcus observed. "What species are you, if you don't mind my asking?" "I'm Velarin," she said, "which means my homeworld was the 3rd planet they conquered, which means I lost family to Kreshtar warriors, which means I have every reason to hate them." She turned to face him fully, those amber eyes, blazing with something fierce and uncompromising. "And I choose not to. I choose to believe that these 3 innocent lives matter more than revenge, more than politics, more than fair." Someone had to. The weight of that statement settled between them. Marcus looked at this stunning, passionate woman who dedicated herself to raising the children of her people's conquerors, and felt something shift in his perspective, in his assignment, in his carefully maintained professional distance. "What do you need?" he asked. "Sorry? You said I'm here to observe and report, so I'm asking, what do you need? What can Earth and humanity do to help?" Lyra studied him with an expression he couldn't read: surprise, maybe, or suspicion, or hope. "The coalition provides minimal funding, enough for basic care but not enough for proper socialization. Genetic diversity, restoration, anything beyond keeping them alive. If your report recommends increased support, if Earth backs this project, the Council might actually listen. Humans have political capital. Right now, you're the newcomers, the wild cards, the species that abstained when everyone else voted for abandonment. Your voice carries weight. Then you'll have my support," Marcus said, the decision feeling right in his bones. "But I'll need to understand everything. Their care requirements, development stages, the rehabilitation plan, all of it." Something flickered across Lyra's face. Relief, maybe, or gratitude. "You'll need to spend time with them directly. Observation isn't enough. You'll need hands-on experience to write a convincing report." "I'm not exactly trained in xenobiology," Marcus admitted. "I'm a policy analyst. I observe and document. I don't usually interact." "Then you'll learn," Lyra said, with that hint of a smile expression. "Come on." They'll sleep for about an hour, then they'll wake up hungry, cranky, and ready to practice their stalking. You might as well jump in the deep end. The following days blurred together in a way Marcus had never experienced in his careful, scheduled, predictable life. Lyra was a patient but demanding teacher, showing him how to prepare the cubs' specialized nutrition formula, how to read their body language, how to reinforce positive behaviors while redirecting their instinctual aggression toward appropriate outlets. The cubs, who Lyra had named Ash, Ember, and Little White Patch Scout, quickly accepted Marcus into their world. With the adaptability of young creatures who didn't yet know to fear or hate, he learned their personalities quickly. Ash, the largest, was bold and protective of his siblings, always first to investigate anything new, first to position himself between potential threats and the others. Ember was cunning, the problem solver, the one who figured out how to open the food dispensers and climb the habitat walls. And Scout, the smallest, was the observer, the thinker, the one who watched everything with intense focus before attempting anything himself. "Scout reminds me of you," Lyra commented one evening as they cleaned the habitat while the cubs played in their secondary enclosure. She'd been opening up more each day, letting her guard down in increments, sharing stories about Velora, about her training in xenobiology, about the day she'd first seen the 3 orphan cubs and known immediately she couldn't let them face extinction alone. "How so?" Marcus asked, carefully scrubbing the feeding platform. "He thinks before he acts, watches, analyzes, waits for the right moment," she said. "Very human of him, actually. Most species either rely on instinct or overthink to paralysis. Humans balance between. You calculate risks, but you still take them when it matters. Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation," she replied, but her tone was warm, teasing almost. "Though I suppose it could be both." Their fingers brushed as they both reached for the same cleaning tool, a moment of contact that lasted a fraction too long to be accidental. Marcus looked up to find Lyra already watching him, that luminescent quality seeming stronger in the dimmed evening lighting, making her seem almost ethereal. "Can I ask you something personal?" he ventured. "You can ask. I reserve the right not to answer. Why you, specifically? Why did you take this on when you had every reason to walk away?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her expression distant. "Because I was there at the end, when the council voted. And I saw the whole of it of these 3 cubs, scared and alone, crying for parents who would never come. And I saw every delegate turn away, saw them choose politics over compassion. And I thought about my sister." She paused, something painful crossing her face. "I lost her in the war. She was a civilian. Wrong place. During a Kreshtar raid. She died afraid and alone. And I realized these cubs would die the same way if someone didn't choose differently. I couldn't give my sister another chance, but I could give them one. I could break the cycle." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "She would be proud of you. Maybe," Lyra said softly, "or maybe she'd think I was crazy. Doesn't matter. I know what I'm doing is right." That has to be enough. Before Marcus could respond, a sound erupted from the secondary enclosure, the cubs practicing their roars again. The familiar chorus of squeaky determination that made both of them smile despite the heavy conversation. They moved to the observation window together, standing close enough that Marcus could feel the warmth radiating from Lyra's skin, that strange luminescence seeming to pulse gently like a heartbeat. "Watch Scout," Lyra whispered. "He's been trying something new." Sure enough, the smallest cub had climbed onto a rock outcropping, positioning himself above his siblings in a clear dominance display. He puffed up his chest, opened his mouth wide, and let out what was genuinely the most impressive roar yet from any of them. It had actual depth, actual resonance, lasting almost 3 full seconds before Scout's eyes went wide. He wavered and toppled forward off the rock, asleep before he hit the soft bedding below. His tiny snores immediately audible through the speakers. He literally roared himself to sleep. Marcus laughed, the sound surprised out of him. "That's the most adorable and ridiculous thing I've ever witnessed. And you said you weren't good with xenobiology," Lyra teased. "You're completely charmed, admit it." "Completely," Marcus agreed. But he was looking at her when he said it, and from the way her breath caught, the way that luminescence flared brighter for just an instant, she knew he wasn't just talking about the cubs. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility, with all the things neither of them had said yet, but both felt growing stronger each day. Then Ember managed to knock over an entire stack of enrichment toys in the enclosure, startling Ash awake, who started crying for attention. And the moment broke as they both moved into action, falling into the comfortable rhythm of caretaking they'd developed. 2 weeks into his assignment, Marcus woke to alarms blaring through the station. He grabbed his comm unit, heart racing, pulled up the emergency channel and felt ice flood his veins. Crustar signature detected. Approaching vector suggests deliberate course. Estimated arrival 3 hours. He was dressed and running toward the biodome before his conscious mind caught up, bursting through the habitat doors to find Lyra already there, standing frozen at the observation window, her face pale in the emergency lighting. "It's a refugee ship," she said, without looking at him, her voice hollow. "Survivors from the outer colonies. They've been searching for the cubs. Someone leaked our location." "That's good news, isn't it?" Marcus said carefully, approaching her slowly. "It means they won't be the last of their kind. It means family. Connection. It means I lose them." Lyra cut him off, and when she finally turned to face him, he saw tears tracking down her cheeks, that luminescent skin making them shimmer like molten silver. "It means I raised them just to give them away. It means everything I've done here ends. I knew this was temporary. I knew I was just a caretaker until something better came along. I just didn't think it would hurt this much." Marcus closed the distance between them without thinking, pulled her into his arms and felt her collapse against him, her whole body shaking with the force of emotions she'd clearly been holding back for months. "You gave them a chance," he said quietly, fiercely, into her silver hair. "You gave them love and safety when the entire galaxy turned its back. You taught them to roar. Even if they fall asleep trying, you matter, Lyra. What you did here matters more than anything." She looked up at him, her face inches from his, vulnerable and beautiful and so heartbreakingly sad. "I don't know how to let go." "Then don't," Marcus said, the idea forming even as he spoke. "Come back to Earth with me. We'll petition the Coalition for a permanent xenoconservation program. We'll find more orphaned species, more impossible cases. We'll do this together, together," she repeated, like she was testing the word. "I watched you with them," Marcus continued, knowing he was putting everything on the line, but unable to stop. "I watched you choose compassion over hate, love over revenge, hope over despair. And I have never met anyone more extraordinary. I came here to file a report, but I'm leaving with so much more. If you'll take a chance on me, on us, on what we could build." Lyra's hand came up to cup his face, her touch warm and electric, her amber eyes searching his for any hint of doubt. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her, because she smiled, real and radiant and absolutely devastating. "You're asking me to choose you," she said. "I'm asking you to choose yourself," Marcus corrected gently. "To believe that your work, your compassion, your incredible heart deserves more than hiding on a forgotten station. I'm just hoping you might choose me too." Along the way, she kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And Marcus felt like he was falling and flying at the same time, untethered from everything he'd planned for his life, and absolutely certain this was exactly where he was meant to be. The kiss ended, but they stayed close, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. "Ask me again tomorrow," Lyra whispered. "After we meet the refugees, after we see the cubs with their people. Ask me when my heart isn't breaking quite so hard. I'll ask you every day if I have to," Marcus promised. The Creshtar ship docked with military precision 3 hours later, and Marcus stood beside Lyra as the delegation came aboard, 3 adults, 2 females and 1 male, all carrying the scars of war and loss, but moving with the deadly grace their species was known for. Even in peace, they were intimidating, easily 7 feet tall, powerfully built, with those distinctive ridge patterns fully developed along their spines and arms. The male, who introduced himself as Commander Veshkran, stopped dead when he saw the cubs through the observation window. All 3 were awake, playing an elaborate game of stalk and pounce with each other, completely unaware their entire world was about to change. "They live," Veshkran said, his voice rough with emotion in the Kreshtar language that Lyra's translator rendered into standard. "We had heard rumors, hopes, but to see them. You have done this, Velarin. You have saved the future of our people." Lyra straightened her spine, met his gaze directly. Despite the height difference and the very valid fear any sane person would feel facing a Kreshtar warrior, "I have raised them with love and proper care. They are healthy, developing normally, learning their instincts. They deserve good lives, Commander, not revenge, not war, not the mistakes of the past." One of the females, Her ridge patterns marked with what Marcus now recognized as mourning scars, stepped forward. "The past dies with our generation," she said quietly. "These young ones, they will inherit a different future. We have seen what expansion cost us, what pride and conquest took from the galaxy and from ourselves. We are few now, humbled, seeking only to survive, and perhaps someday, earn forgiveness. Start by loving them," Lyra said, her voice cracking slightly. "They practice their roars every day, trying so hard to be what instinct tells them they should be. And then they fall asleep mid-roar because they're babies who exhaust themselves trying to be fierce. They're perfect and ridiculous, and they need patience and guidance and protection from a galaxy that still fears them." "You love them," Veshkran observed, something like respect in his tone. "I do," Lyra admitted. "Which is why I need your word, your oath as Kreshtar, that they will be safe, cherished, given every chance to become the best version of whatever their future holds." The three adult Kreshtar dropped to one knee in perfect synchronization, a gesture Marcus recognized from his briefings as the highest form of respect their species could offer. "You have our oath, caretaker," Veshkran said formally. "And more, you have our eternal debt, the Kreshtar. Do not forget those who show mercy when they could choose hatred. Your name will be written in our histories as the one who saved us from deserved extinction. We offer you a place among our people, if you would have it, a voice in how these young ones are raised, a connection that honors what you have given us." Lyra looked at Marcus, a question in her eyes. He nodded, squeezed her hand in support. "I'm building something new," she told the Kreshtar delegation, "a conservation program, finding and protecting species on the edge of extinction, giving orphans a chance. But I would like to visit, to see them grow, to know they're thriving. You will always be welcome," the female with mourning scars promised. "And when they are old enough, we will tell them of the Velarin who chose compassion, who taught them their first roars, who loved them when love was the rarest thing in the galaxy." The transfer took hours. Careful instructions, medical records, behavioral notes, tearful goodbyes as Lyra held each cub one final time. Scout, tiny and determined, nuzzled into her neck and made his little rumbling purr. And Marcus had to look away from the raw emotion on Lyra's face because it hurt to witness something so beautiful and so painful at once. When the Kreshtar ship finally departed, Lyra and Marcus stood in the empty habitat, the silence almost oppressive after weeks of constant cub chaos. "It's too quiet," Lyra said. "Then let's fill it with noise," Marcus replied, pulling up his comm and accessing the Coalition emergency channels. "Let's find every orphan cub, every abandoned egg, every species the galaxy has given up on. Let's fill stations across space with the sound of tiny roars and second chances." Lyra turned to him, that luminescence bright despite the tears still on her cheeks. "You meant it, the offer, Earth, a program, partnership. All of it, every word," Marcus confirmed. "I came here to write a report, but I'm leaving with a purpose, and if I'm very lucky, with you." "You're sure about this?" she asked. "I'm complicated, I'm stubborn. I fall in love with dangerous orphans and make impossible choices. I'm not easy. Neither is anything worth doing," Marcus said, closing the distance between them. "But I've watched you choose hope every single day. I've seen you stand up to your own trauma and decide love matters more. I've fallen completely for your strength, your compassion, your terrible jokes when you're tired, your luminescent skin that glows brighter when you're happy, all of it. So, yes, Lyra, I'm absolutely sure." She kissed him again, deeper this time, full of promise and possibility and the start of something neither of them had planned, but both desperately wanted. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling through her tears, radiant and devastating, and his. "Ask me," she whispered. "Come back to Earth with me," Marcus said. "Build something impossible with me. Save the galaxies forgotten with me. Choose this crazy hope with me. Choose me." "Yes," Lyra breathed. "Yes to all of it. To impossible hope, to second chances, to us, always, yes." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the brand new Interspecies Orphan Rehabilitation Center on Earth's Pacific Station, watching through an observation window as Lyra taught a class of xenobiology students the proper way to handle Threxian hatchlings without triggering their defensive spines. She was in her element, passionate and knowledgeable and so beautiful it still made his breath catch. Her luminescent skin glowing brighter in her happiness, her silver hair pulled back in a practical braid, wearing her favorite fitted tactical pants and a top with the sender's logo embroidered over her heart. The sender had become everything they'd dreamed and more. Funded by a coalition of species who'd finally understood that preservation mattered more than politics. That orphans deserved chances regardless of their species' history. They had 17 different species in residence. Now, from gentle herbivores to apex predators, each one loved and protected and given hope. Marcus's come chimed with an incoming message. He pulled it up and felt his heart skip. The message was from Veshgran with an attached video file. He opened it and immediately called for Lyra, who came running with that concerned teacher expression that meant she thought something was wrong. "What is it? What's happened?" she demanded. "Just watch," Marcus said, pulling up the video on the large display screen. The footage showed a Kreshtar habitat, warm and carefully maintained. And in the center, 3 young Kreshtar, significantly larger than when they'd left Kethara, but still clearly juveniles. They were positioned in a proud triangle. And as the video's audio kicked in, they began to roar. These weren't the squeaky attempts of infants. These were developing roars, real bass and power behind them. The roars of young predators learning their strength. They sustained the sounds for nearly 10 seconds. Impressive and fierce and growing into their birthright. And then, in perfect unison, all 3 began to waver. Scout was first, toppling sideways with a surprised chirp as sleep overtook him mid-roar. Followed immediately by Ember and Ash, all 3 collapsing into an adorable pile of unconscious predator cubs, still not quite grown enough to handle the energy expenditure of a proper roar. The video continued, showing Veshgran entering frame, carefully covering each cub with a thermal blanket, his fierce warrior's face soft with unmistakable affection. He looked directly into the camera and spoke in careful standard. "Caretaker Lyra, they ask about you constantly, they remember. We tell them stories of the one who loved them first, who taught them to roar even when the galaxy wanted silence. Thank you. Thank you for our future." The video ended and Lyra was crying, laughing, her hands pressed to her mouth as joy radiated from her invisible waves of luminescence. "They're thriving," she managed. "They're loved and safe and still falling asleep mid-roar. They're perfect." Marcus wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. "Like someone I know," he murmured, choosing to roar even when it's exhausting. Even when it would be easier to stay quiet, making impossible things possible through sheer stubborn hope. "We did that," Lyra said, turning in his arms to face him. "We chose this together. We're giving them all a chance to roar, together." Marcus agreed, and kissed her in the station hallway, surrounded by the distant sounds of hatchlings chirping, cubs playing, and orphans being given the second chances they deserved. The galaxy was still broken in so many ways, still healing from wars and prejudices and mistakes. But here, in this moment, in this station full of impossible hope, 2 people who'd chosen compassion over hate were building something beautiful, one tiny roar at a time.